I had always believed my 15 years of marriage to Sarah were built on trust. My younger brother Daniel was my best friend since childhood. My kids Tyler and Emma were my pride and joy. When Sarah started getting strange texts and my children began acting differently around me, I convinced myself it was nothing. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Before I tell you about how I discovered the devastating truth, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you believe in justice. Life in our suburban Boston home seemed perfect to anyone looking in. I worked as a software engineer at a tech company downtown, putting in long hours but making sure I was home for dinner with the family every night. Sarah had built a successful career as an interior designer working with high-end clients throughout New England. Our social media profiles showed what everyone thought was the ideal American family. Tyler had just turned 14 when things started changing. He was getting taller every day, showing promise as a basketball player, and had inherited my aptitude for computers. Emma had recently celebrated her 12th birthday. She was artistic, like her mother, always drawing or painting something beautiful. They both had always been affectionate kids who loved spending time with me. Our weekends followed a comfortable routine. Saturday mornings I would make pancakes while the kids watched cartoons. Afternoons were filled with sports practices or art classes. Sunday dinners were sacred family time, often with extended family joining us. Summer vacations meant road trips to national parks or visiting grandparents in Florida. Christmas was always at our house, with Sarah decorating every inch of our 4-bedroom colonial. Daniel lived about 20 minutes away in a downtown apartment. 3 years younger than me, he had always looked up to his big brother. Growing up, I protected him from neighborhood bullies and helped him with homework. As adults, I continued to be his support system, helping him land his first job at a financial services firm through my connections. Daniel never seemed to settle down with anyone. He dated casually, but would tell me that he was focusing on his career first. I admired his dedication to building his future. When our parents passed away 6 years ago, within months of each other, it brought us even closer. Daniel became a fixture at our family gatherings, the fun uncle who spoiled my kids and always brought the best gifts. I gave him a key to our house years ago. It made sense at the time. He would water the plants when we traveled, check on things if we were away. Sometimes he would crash on our couch after Sunday dinner if he had too much wine. Sarah always set an extra place at the table for him, telling me how lucky I was to have such a close relationship with my brother. The first signs that something was wrong started about 2 years ago. Sarah began staying late at work more frequently. New clients with urgent projects became her standard explanation. When she came home, she would be on her phone, constantly turning the screen away whenever I walked by. She started caring more about her appearance. New clothes appeared in her closet. She changed her hairstyle, started wearing makeup even on weekends. I actually liked the changes and told her how beautiful she looked. She would smile briefly but seemed distracted. One night I asked to use her phone to check my email when my phone was charging. She hesitated before handing it over, watching me intently the whole time. I noticed her password had changed from our anniversary date to something I did not recognize. When I mentioned it casually, she said something about security recommendations at work. Her laptop was suddenly always password protected too. Sarah had never been particularly private about her devices before. We had always known each other's passwords as a matter of practicality. Now she was carefully signing out of everything, closing laptop lids when I entered a room. The phone calls were another red flag. She would step outside to take calls, claiming she needed better reception. If I walked into the room while she was talking, the conversation would end abruptly. When I asked who it was, the answer was always a client or colleague. Even more concerning was how Tyler and Emma began to change around me. My son, who used to tell me everything about school and friends, became monosyllabic in our conversations. Emma, who had always been my little shadow, started finding reasons to avoid our traditional Saturday morning bike rides. I would enter rooms and conversations between them would stop immediately. They exchanged glances I could not decipher. When I asked what they were talking about, the answer was always nothing important. Both kids suddenly had new possessions I did not remember buying. Tyler had expensive new sneakers and a smartwatch. Emma had designer clothes that Sarah claimed were just things she had picked up on sale. When I pressed for details, Emma would become unusually irritable, something completely out of character for my normally sweet daughter. Once I overheard Emma telling Sarah that I had asked about her whereabouts the previous evening. The tone was conspiratorial, not the usual mother-daughter conversation. Sarah had patted her shoulder and said something I could not quite hear, but it ended with them both looking at me when I entered the kitchen, their expressions immediately neutral. I spent months in denial. I told myself Sarah was just stressed about work. The kids were just going through normal teenage phases. Daniel was busy with his career. I convinced myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid. I started working longer hours, thinking maybe I had been neglecting my family responsibilities. I planned special dinners and family outings to theme parks. I suggested a second honeymoon for Sarah and me. She seemed enthusiastic but always found reasons to postpone. Sleep became difficult. I would lie awake watching Sarah beside me, wondering what was happening to my family. I lost weight. Colleagues commented that I seemed distracted in meetings. Still, I could not bring myself to admit what my instincts were telling me. Everything changed on a Tuesday night in October. Sarah had fallen asleep on the couch while watching television. Her laptop was open on the coffee table, still logged in. A notification popped up. A message from Daniel. Without thinking, I clicked on it. What I saw made my blood run cold. An intimate exchange about meeting the next day, while I would be at work. References to their last encounter. Plans for the future. I felt physically ill, but forced myself to read every word, taking screenshots with my phone as evidence. The guilt of invading her privacy warred with my need to know the truth. But now that I had seen this message, I could not unsee it or ignore it. I had to know everything. I closed the laptop exactly as I had found it and went to the guest bedroom, unable to sleep beside her. The next morning I called in sick to work for the first time in years. After Sarah left, I followed her at a distance. She drove straight to Daniel's apartment building. She had told me she would be meeting a new client in Brookline. I watched her enter the building, feeling like my heart was being crushed. I started documenting everything. I purchased data recovery software and extracted deleted text messages from her phone while she showered. I reviewed phone records, finding hundreds of calls between them going back almost 2 years. I installed a keylogger on our home computer and gained access to their email exchanges. The evidence mounted day by day. They discussed me as an obstacle to their happiness. They talked about how much money Sarah could get in a divorce. Daniel mentioned wanting to be a real father to my children. The betrayal cut deeper with each discovery, but the worst was yet to come. I had a 3-day business trip scheduled to Chicago the following week. Before leaving, I installed small cameras in our living room and bedroom, hidden among books and decor items. I told myself it was just to confirm what I already knew. I never expected what I would actually see. The night I was away, Daniel came over for dinner. What started as a seemingly innocent family meal with my children present evolved into something else after the kids went to bed. The footage showed Sarah and Daniel becoming intimate in our living room, then moving to our bedroom, our marital bed. The same sheets I had slept on the night before. But the true devastation came from discovering my children's involvement. While reviewing older text messages I had recovered, I found exchanges between Sarah and Tyler discussing how to keep things from me. Tyler texting her warnings when I was on my way home, unexpectedly. Emma deliberately distracting me with homework questions or asking to play games when Daniel was visiting, and Sarah needed time alone with him. There were texts from Daniel to the kids offering bribes, concert tickets for keeping secrets, new phones as rewards for lying to me, trips to expensive amusement parks that I thought were school functions. My own children had been turned against me, coached to participate in the deception. I discovered a joint account Sarah and Daniel had opened together. They had been siphoning money from our family accounts, preparing for their future. The detailed planning was breathtaking in its calculated betrayal. This was not an impulsive affair. This was a coordinated campaign to destroy me while taking everything I had worked for. The night I discovered all this, I had severe chest pains. I drove myself to the emergency room, terrified I was having a heart attack at 38 years old. It was diagnosed as acute anxiety, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional devastation. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. I would lock myself in the bathroom and silently sob until I had no tears left. Then I would wash my face and return to the dinner table pretending nothing was wrong. The performance was exhausting. Sarah asked if I was feeling all right. She touched my forehead with concern, the same hand that had caressed my brother. Tyler asked why I was not eating much. Emma brought me a drawing she had made, saying it might cheer me up. Their false concern was almost more than I could bear. I came close to confronting them multiple times. Once I even started to say something to Sarah in bed, but stopped myself. Confronting them now would only give them a chance to hide assets, coordinate stories, and paint me as paranoid or abusive. I needed to be strategic. I consulted with 3 different divorce attorneys, seeking the one who could be most aggressive in protecting my interests. I learned about community property laws in Massachusetts. I discovered that adultery could impact alimony decisions. I found out that at ages 14 and 12, my children would have significant input into custody arrangements. I hired a private investigator to document the affair professionally, creating evidence that would be admissible in court. The investigator followed them to hotels, restaurants, and weekend trips they took while telling me they were elsewhere. The detailed reports and photographs made me physically ill, but I forced myself to review everything. Financial preparation became my focus. I opened new bank accounts in Washington State, where I had begun job hunting. I liquidated investments and moved money into these accounts, careful to stay within legal limits of what I could transfer without her signature. I applied for positions at tech companies in Seattle, far from Boston, and the wreckage of my life there. After several interviews, I received an offer with a significant salary increase. I accepted immediately, without telling anyone in my family. I contacted a real estate agent about selling our house. She advised me on the necessary improvements to maximize the sale price. I began making repairs and updates on weekends, telling Sarah it was just to increase our property value. She seemed pleased, unaware of my true intentions. My investigation extended to Daniel's professional life. Through industry contacts, I learned that his firm had strict morality clauses in their contracts. Affairs with clients, family members, were explicitly forbidden. I gathered documentation of his relationship with Sarah, including times he had missed work or used company resources to facilitate their meetings. Sarah's interior design business relied heavily on referrals from a few key clients. I discovered that several were highly religious individuals who valued family and traditional morality. They would be shocked to learn their designer was having an affair with her husband's brother and involving children in the deception. I drafted emails with evidence attached, ready to send to Daniel's bosses, Sarah's clients, and our extended family members. I saved them in a secure email account scheduled to send automatically when I gave the command. I researched schools in Seattle for the children in case they eventually came to live with me. I found a good therapist there who specialized in family trauma and betrayal, making an appointment for myself for the week after my planned move. As the day approached, I became more methodical. I purchased a one-way plane ticket to Seattle. I rented a furnished apartment there under my new company's name. I began shipping personal items I cared about to the new address, telling Sarah I was donating old things to charity. The house sold quickly in a strong market. I convinced Sarah to sign the closing documents by telling her we were refinancing to renovate the kitchen. The proceeds went into an escrow account temporarily. I sold my car to a private buyer. I sold stocks and bonds. Everything was converting to cash that I could legally control. I scheduled my revelation for a Sunday when I knew all of them would be home with no outside commitments. I prepared a detailed presentation of the evidence, organized chronologically, to show the extent and duration of their betrayal. I wrote out what I would say, rehearsing to maintain my composure. The night before, I could barely breathe, thinking about what was to come. But underneath the pain was something new, a sense of taking control back, of refusing to be their victim any longer. I would not let them destroy me. I would rebuild my life on my terms. That Sunday morning, I made pancakes as usual. I hugged my children, memorizing how they felt in my arms. I told Sarah she looked beautiful, watching her smile at the compliment. I texted Daniel to make sure he was coming for dinner. I set the table for 4, knowing it would be the last meal we would ever share. After lunch, I connected my laptop to our television. I asked everyone to join me in the living room for a family meeting. Sarah looked concerned. The kids seemed annoyed at the interruption to their day. I stood before them, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I started the presentation without introduction. Text messages between Sarah and Daniel appeared on the screen. Photos of them entering hotels, video clips from my home cameras, financial statements showing the money they had been hiding, and finally the evidence of my children's participation in the deception. Sarah gasped, then tried to reach for the remote to stop the slideshow. Daniel went pale, then angry, accusing me of spying. Tyler stared at the floor, unable to look at me. Emma began to cry, asking if I was going to leave. I let them talk, watching as denial turned to anger, then to desperate justification. Sarah claimed she had been lonely. Daniel said they had not planned for it to happen. The children insisted they had only done what their mother asked, that they still loved me. When they had exhausted themselves with explanations and excuses, I spoke. I told them I had loved them all completely. I had trusted them without reservation, and they had conspired to deceive me in the cruelest way possible. Then I revealed what I had done. The house was sold. The cars were gone. The bank accounts were empty. I had accepted a job 3,000 miles away, starting the following week. I showed them the empty closet upstairs where my clothes had been. I placed my house key on the coffee table. I informed Daniel that his company would receive evidence of his ethical violations tomorrow morning. Sarah's clients would learn of her behavior before she woke up the next day. Family members on both sides would get detailed accounts of what they had done. Sarah screamed that I could not do this, that it was her house too. Daniel threatened legal action. I calmly explained that everything had been done legally. The house proceeds were in accounts they could not access without court orders that would take months to obtain. By then, the money would be protected through legal structures my attorneys had created. I told the children I would always love them, but that they had broken my trust in a way that would take years to rebuild. I explained that they could contact me when they were ready to take responsibility for their actions. I would be open to reconciliation, but only with genuine remorse and changed behavior. As I prepared to leave, Emma grabbed my leg, begging me not to go. Tyler stood frozen, finally seeing the consequences of his choices. Sarah alternated between threats and pleas. Daniel sat with his head in his hands, his carefully constructed future collapsing around him. I gently removed Emma's hands, kissed her forehead, and walked out the door. The Uber waiting outside took me to the airport. I boarded my flight to Seattle without looking back. Within weeks, the consequences of my actions rippled through their lives. Daniel was terminated from his position after a brief investigation confirmed his ethical violations. His professional reputation was ruined. Financial firms have little tolerance for employees who demonstrate poor judgment and dishonesty. Sarah lost her most significant clients. Interior design is a business built on trust and personal relationships. No one wanted their homes designed by someone whose personal life demonstrated such deception. Her business collapsed, and with no access to our joint assets, she struggled to maintain the lifestyle she had become accustomed to. The children faced their own fallout. Friends and family looked at them differently. Their part in the deception became known in our community. Tyler lost his position on the basketball team when the coach, a family friend, learned what had happened. Emma's friends were not allowed to visit her anymore. Meanwhile, I began rebuilding in Seattle. My new position challenged me professionally. I found a small but comfortable apartment with a view of Puget Sound. I started seeing the therapist weekly, working through my anger and betrayal. 3 months after moving, I joined a support group for people who had experienced similar betrayals. The stories I heard helped me realize I was not alone. The group became a lifeline during my darkest moments. In the group I met Laura. She had been through a similar experience, her husband having an affair with her sister. We started as friends, meeting for coffee after group sessions to continue conversations. Gradually, it evolved into something more. She understood my pain in a way no one else could. 6 months into my new life, I received the first email from Tyler. It was brief, just asking if I was okay. I responded simply that I was healing. We began exchanging messages every few weeks. He never mentioned Sarah or Daniel, and neither did I. Emma started calling on Sunday afternoons. Our conversations were awkward at first, filled with long silences. Eventually, she began sharing details about school and her art. She asked if she could visit during summer break. I said we could discuss it when the time came. From mutual friends, I learned that Sarah and Daniel had attempted to make their relationship official, but it had quickly deteriorated under the stress of financial problems and social ostracism. Daniel had moved to Chicago to restart his career. Sarah was working at a furniture store, barely making ends meet. A year after leaving, I had established a new life. I was promoted at work. Laura and I moved in together. I had regular communication with both children. I had joined a hiking club and made new friends. The crushing weight of betrayal had not disappeared, but it had become manageable. I recognized that the revenge I had enacted came from a place of deep pain. While I did not regret protecting myself financially and emotionally, I sometimes questioned whether I had gone too far in destroying their lives so completely. But then I would remember the years of deception, the calculated nature of their betrayal, and the involvement of my children, and I knew I had simply allowed natural consequences to unfold. The most important lesson I learned was that self-respect must come before forgiveness. By refusing to be a victim, by taking decisive action instead of suffering in silence, I had reclaimed my power. I had shown my children that actions have consequences, that integrity matters, that I valued myself enough to walk away from people who betrayed me, even those I loved most. Today, as I stand looking out over the Seattle skyline, I am not the same man who made Sunday pancakes in that Boston kitchen. I am stronger. More cautious, yes, but also more authentic. I know my worth now in a way I never did before. Has my experience made you think about trust and betrayal in your own life? Have you ever had to rebuild after someone you loved betrayed you? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.